jameni, mwananchi ni maskini, hana hata ya kukula, lakini akifungua gazeti anaona wajumbe wamejipatia pesa. You know, surely, and I say it, mimi with respect, sitaki mimi vita na mtu. Sasa ndio muende muanze kujishawiria tutachapa huyu mtu ameenda kutu. Mimi sina vita na mtu. But I am just saying these are things that we must talk about.
President Uhuru Kenyatta there has since maintained his stand against the Parliamentary Service Bill 2018, in which members of parliament seek to raise their salaries and allowances. The president says he does not care if he loses the goodwill of the members of parliament, but he shall side with the common Kenyan who is also against the perks. The perks that members of parliament intend to enhance are house allowances, car loans and insurance covers. Last month, the president rebuked the legislators, accusing them of always increasing their pay without considering the welfare of the electorate. The bill that is meant to anchor the remuneration of the legislators in law is set to be passed tomorrow. MPs have vowed to defy the president, saying what they're legislating in this bill is a mere formalization of their pay. In studio for more on this conversation is Nyando, Member of Parliament Jared Okello. Also with us is a political analyst, Dunstan Omari, joining us live from our city centre studios. Dunstan, good evening. Members of Parliament say the Parliamentary Service Bill 2018 is not about raising salaries, but a mere formalization of their salaries. They already earn what is included in this bill. Talk to us about your thoughts on the same.
Thank you very much, Salimia Mheshimiwa, former political analyst. We did a lot of debates with him. Right now, he's called Mheshimiwa with a total different mindset. First and foremost, the parliamentarians want to increase their salaries and allowances. That one is not getting any Kenyan by surprise. It is true to what is expected of them. These members of parliament are saying that they want to comply with the constitutional provisions. That constitutional provision is true. The current Parliamentary Act, Parliamentary Commission Act, only mentions the National Assembly to the exclusion of the Senate. That is the only thing that they need to realign to.
Right.
There is no constitutional provision that says they must add their salaries. They must add their mortgages. Therefore, the selectivity of what they need to realign themselves to the Constitution is quite laughable. The other day, a constitutional provision that is mandatory for a two-third gender bill has been flawed by the same parliamentarians thrice. This one, and I'll tell you for free, tomorrow, women included, men included, all the 349 members of parliament will pass that bill. That tells you two issues. One, politically, out of the 290 elected members of parliament, plus the 47 senators that are elected in the Senate, only 10% are likely to come back.
Right.
In 2022. So these friends of ours, the gentlemen and gentleladies in Parliament and Senate, know very well that even if they support what the president is saying, almost all of them are going home. So the better thing is that let us pass this bill, let us get that pension of ours, let us get those freebies that they want. In 2022, they will be reduced to mere spectators of parliament. And this type of selfish interest...
Oh, go ahead.
Yes? Yeah, this is a very selfish way of dealing with the issues. But where do we leave the role of the Kenyans?
Right.
Remember, the same members of parliament and the Senate will always come and hoodwink us. When shall we stand and vote for people who care for this nation? When shall my vote and your vote, the viewers of KTN, stand firm and look at people who care about the interest of this nation?
Right.
I am not surprised, and I've repeated this, that the selfish interests of the legislature will always be They unite together to pass the bill.
All right,
Will the president
I want to take you back to what you just said.
In this?
I want to take you back to what you just said, because members of parliament have accused the media of distorting the contents of this bill. It has been made clear, even by Speaker Justin Muturi, that if the bill is passed and signed into law in line with Article 116 of the Constitution, then current members of parliament will not benefit from it, as it will be against the Constitution. Do you still maintain then that these members of parliament are only looking to gain this benefit from these perks before 2022?
That is not the true position. The parliament is the only arm of government that is allowed to make law.
Right.
They will sneak a very few amendments and they will benefit out of it.
I mean, the law provides
how strategic.
The law provides that MPs, a direct interest on MPs shall not come into force until after the next general election. So how then are the current MPs meant to benefit from this?
I have never held one parliament, whether it's the 10th parliament or the 11th parliament or the 12th parliament, in total confidence that what they are telling Kenyans is what will happen. That will be an amendment that will be pushed through again, and they'll see the light of the day.
Right.
And that is why the condemnation of the media is at a high rate. The parliamentarians are not comfortable with the media.
Right.
They are not comfortable with the political analysts, because they are exposing the reality and the intent and the extent of the bill as it is.
All right. Let's hear from Jared Okello, Nyando, Member of Parliament. Just digging in from what Dunstan just said. It's quite hypocritical just last week that MPs pushed back attempts to ratify the gender bill on grounds that it will inflate the wage bill in the country, but at the same time are moving to raise their perks. Now you argue MPs are not moving to raise their perks, but will there be an implication on taxpayers' money?
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Firstly, let me deconstruct this myth that members of parliament or politicians would always have a problem with the members of the fourth estate. I remember one American former president did say that given a choice between politicians and the media, he will go with the media for very obvious reasons. That the media shines bright light in the dark corners of our misgovernance. So the part that is played by the media cannot be underestimated. And we are fully in support of the media and what they do to the society. Now, a lot has been said about this kind of thing, but let's make it clear that the last week, the bill on this gender never flopped. It did not. It was deferred, and for a very good reason, that it needed 2/3 for its passage in support to see the light of day. At the time when the Speaker was pronouncing himself on the subject, he had done, using his staffers, a head count, and there were only 212 members in the House. When you have 212 members for a House that must have 233 members for a bill to see the light of the day, in his wisdom, he chose to defy it to a later date. And remember, we are talking about 212 in its entirety. You haven't looked at those who will abstain. You don't look at those who will say no and those who will vote for it. So you really need, as a matter of abundance of caution, have over 233 members in the House. So it did not flop. It will not flop. It was deferred to a later date. There are constitutional provisions that safeguard that kind of bill, so it cannot just be swept easily under the carpet.
All right, but that still does not answer my question. Should the Parliamentary Service Bill 2018 be passed, what impact will it have on the taxpayer?
The impact it will have, and you know, let's put everything into context, my sister Michelle. Members of Parliament, if you include their salaries and you also include all the perks, the staffers and everything else, it takes 1.5% of the country's revenue.
Right.
Let me repeat for the record, 1.5%. You have 100% country's GDP, out of which 2.5% would go to constituencies in the name of CDF. Then you have 15% going to the governors in the name of devolution. So you have the executive holding on to about 80%, 80%, drawn from taxpayers. Now, questions would then quickly arise at 1.5%, and no one is really scrutinizing 80% that is held by the executive. Each time, and the media has done a great job on this,
right.
When there are revelations on financial probity or mismanagement of public resources or pilferages and squandering public money, the media has highlighted this perfectly well. Each time that has come forward, it is the executive, the ministries, government departments pilfering public money. At no given time have you heard that members of parliament running under the Parliamentary Service Commission have ever been engaged in financial probity.
Right.
When 80% goes to the drains, no one would want to question, but 1.5% presents a very, very big problem.
And I want to ask one more question. I want to ask one more question before I got to Dunstan, because you mentioned all this wastage and 80% going to the executive, but the taxpayer is burdened by high taxes and public debt caused majorly by lack of oversight from Parliament. So how does Parliament respond to that?
Let me tell you, there is no house that safeguards the interest of Kenyans more than Parliament. You remember that the VAT that was imposed on petroleum products, which became subject of discussion by everybody in this country, members of Parliament, to a very large degree, rejected this in view of the interest of the public. The executive, same executive that is now castigating members of Parliament, pushed it on the throat of members of this country.
Right.
And no one has questioned. 8%, and you see the multiplying effects that it has had on products that people use on essential commodities and everything else in this same country. Now, you're right to say that if members of Parliament will adopt the house allowance element, then it will have a multiplier effect on the taxpayer. But it is going to translate into 0.008% to the taxpayer. 8% was, put on petroleum products. People made noises. The country has since calmed. The executive is getting its rightful shares from those taxes, and no one would want to question. 0.08% would then present the biggest problem to this country.
All right,
to the people who actually came out to safeguard their same interest. Michelle.
All right, let me bring in Dunstan Omari. Dunstan, you've been listening to what the Honourable has to say there. Your thoughts?
My first thing is that ask Mheshimiwa the role of Parliament as stipulated in the Constitution. Parliament has only two roles under the Constitution, that is to legislate, make laws, two, to oversight.
Right.
Where on earth does Parliament or the legislature have the power to run a CDF account? That is contrary to the known principles of law of clear separation of powers. The role of Parliament as it is today, Kenyans, we need to wake up and deal with it very clearly. CDF is an executive issue. The conflict of interest where the legislature is spending and it is oversighting, that type of mongrel is the problem of this nation. And therefore, in my own view, I have seen a lone president and a lone deputy president who either has surrendered to the capture of the state by the legislature, in the sense that, one, the president tried to remove CDF, he failed. The members of Parliament are still running the CDF. Today, if the president, and he said he does not want war, he knows the war the legislature is going to weigh on him, is going to be quite a problematic. The cost implication, Mheshimiwa is saying it is 0.0.0 -02.
Right.
That, whether it is an extra coin on Kenyan taxpayers, that cannot be accepted. When they refuse to allocate the women that gender, the cost implication was from all the members of parliament. The argument that there were only 212 members of parliament in parliament, and the motion was deferred, is self-defeatist. Let us face the bullet and tell parliament for once and for all that the citizens are watching, and this time I'm sure everybody is watching. 45 million Kenyans are watching. The cost effect, the burden, the financial burden on ordinary citizens is chaos. Where was parliament when all these things, when this burden was all over? So in my own view, whether it is an extra coin that is going to be loaded on the citizens, that is not unacceptable. And the president should take it, and I'm sure he's watching this live transmission now, that he is with 99.9% of the citizens, excluding 0.002% of the legislature or the political class.
All right, and like you mentioned, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been very categorical that he will not stand with the MPs, he will not sign this bill should it get him. So what situation then are we looking at? Because it is expected tomorrow that this bill is overwhelmingly passed on the floor of the National Assembly.
Michelle, it's long since I saw Dunston, and I'm realizing one thing, that he's quickly losing track. Then we need to be meeting often so that I can bring him back on track. We were discussing a fundamental issue on this PSC bill. Then he has quickly relegated it to the CDF matter. And he's aware, he's a lawyer, that the CDF Act, together with the Constitution, do not allow members of parliament to run CDF. That is why the CDF board has sent 290 CDF or fund managers to various constituencies who work hand in hand with the CDFC committees who are actually elected by the electorate. So members of parliament have absolutely no role. You know, that is why I have to meet my friend Omari often. But, you know, the president has the prerogative to either reject or accept this bill. Members of parliament, you remember, just a while back, barely 2 months ago, rejected his VAT bill and zero-rated VAT, just as it has happened 5 years ago. But when it went before him, he rejected it and brought it back to the House so that we could marshal 233 members of parliament to torpedo and circumvent his proposal. So he has a right. The bill will go before him. He can choose to reject it. He can choose to sign it. It will still come back to us. And if we marshal 233, then we will carry the day. If he carries the day, it is well and good. We are in the same country. And at the end of the day, we are serving the interest of Wanjiku. Finally, and this is most critical, members of parliament have 3 roles, and that is why I have to meet Omari often. It is oversight, 1, representation, 2, and legislation, 3. Mr. Omari, you need to come back to my law classes. So we must carry out those 3 responsibilities, focusing on the attention of the electorate and defending what is due to them, just as we defended the VAT, but the president chose to run roughshod with it.
All right, many thanks. That is Nyando Member of Parliament Jared Okello. Of course, perception remains a bigger problem with the electorate. The Parliamentary Service Bill 2018 is expected to be passed before the House of the National Assembly tomorrow. That is the big story. In studio with us, MP Jared Okello, as well as political analyst Dunstan Omari. Many thanks for watching.